Hello and welcome to the Scottish Football Show. With the World Cup kicking off and the top flight action in Scotland taking a back seat for a few weeks, including Giovanni van Bronckhorst, but the Rangers board will be quite busy. We wanted to do something a little bit different for you this week. There have been endless columns, broadcasts, filled with discourse before a ball was even kicked in Qatar, with debate raging around the seemingly myriad problems plaguing the tournament: bribery, scandal, migrant worker deaths, unfinished fan parks, and no beer being served. One area in particular that has been a subject of much debate has been around Qatar's human rights record and, of course, their laws in relation to the LGBTQ+ community. A few days ago, FIFA made it clear that they could impose sanctions on captains who wore One Love armbands at the tournament, a stance at odds with Gianni Infantino's "I am gay, I am disabled" remarks from the day the tournament started. England, Wales and 5 other European nations have admitted the governing body made it clear their captains could be booked or forced to leave the pitch if they did so. In light of what seemed to be such a blatant act from FIFA to sweep under the carpet Qatar's issues with people's right to be themselves, we wanted to revisit one of our favourite interviews from the season so far, when we had Chloe Ainslie and Julie Cuthbertson from Hibees Pride on the show to talk about being football fans from the LGBTQ+ community, the Rainbow Laces campaign and their views on the World Cup. So join me, filmmaker Findlay Marks and Sky Sports' Andrew Dickson. So this is the time of year Rainbow Laces teams up with different sports across the country to help bring visibility to the LGBTQ+ community. Of course, it doesn't matter what your sexuality is, but sadly, it's still an issue in some cultures, even in this day and age, 2022. But we're all about Scottish football here, so we wanted to find out what the attitudes are like specifically in our game and if there's still a bit of work to do. So joining us now, we've got Chloe Ainslie and Julie Cuthbertson from Hibees Pride. Thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate you giving us our time, because it's quite a burning issue, really, and a lot of the time, a lot of the things that are going on through football, like give racism the red card, these things always just pop up now and then. And okay, there's a regularity, but, you know, it should be an ongoing discussion rather than just once a year. Julie, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's part of the reason why we've kind of formed this group, Hibees Pride, because, like you say, it shouldn't just be, you know, once or twice a year. You want it to be something that has got a presence every week at the game, outside the game as well, you know, on all social media channels and stuff like that, trying to look at different ways, different activations, to kind of highlight the issues that still exist, basically, for LGBTQIA plus people in the game today. So get your mouth around that one, yeah.
I mean, it's great that you guys do what you do, but you've got involved in it for a reason. You obviously are football fans, but, you know, have you had any bad experiences, Chloe, kind of getting involved with this?
Fortunately, not as many as I was fearful of happening, though. It was usually at the bigger games that are more heavily condensed, like Rangers, and even like older rivals like Falkirk and Hearts. And a lot of the times, obviously, you get some very homophobic chants, and we had an incident of that recently a wee while ago with Falkirk, and it was quite disheartening because it just it takes you out of something that you're meant to enjoy, because football is, at its core, it's meant to be a community sport. It's meant to be about people coming together to enjoy something, and it was just disheartening to know that still existed. But fortunately, because Hibees Pride had formed by that time, we were actually able to do something about it. We were able to reach out to Hibs and reach out to Falkirk directly and actually get some communication and some understanding about it. So even on that kind of basic, just reaching out, acknowledging something went wrong, and even the clubs endorsing the supporters clubs feeling like this should be resolved, that already in itself for me is quite positive, even when there are bad experiences that happen.
How welcoming and inclusive do you feel that Scottish football is in general to the LGBTQ plus community? Like, is it something that you feel like it's kind of indicative of where society is in general, or do you feel that Scottish football as an entity is maybe even slightly behind where we are culturally in a wider context?
Yeah, I do think Scottish football is further behind than society. And I think a lot of that to do with, you know, the historical roots, kind of working class men. You guys will maybe have experienced it yourself, you know, when a bunch of guys get together, sometimes all morals and etiquette go out the window, you know. So it's football, and particularly Scottish football, still suffers a little bit from that. It kind of splits into two camps for me. One is the kind of people who do support you but still think it's okay to use casual kind of homophobic statements like, oh, that's so gay or whatever. And then there's people who are just overtly homophobic, you know, and those two camps still exist in Scottish football and are fairly prevalent, because we still hear chants probably at a lot of games which are homophobic, and people will join in even if they don't necessarily agree with it because of the tribal mentality.
What is it going to take, do you think, for that to change? I mean, obviously we saw Xander Murray come out recently, and I think that was very widely received as a positive thing by everybody who reacted to it. At the same time, and this isn't disrespectful to the level he's playing at, but that's a player from the Lowland League. Does it need a Scottish Premiership player to come out? And the reason I'm talking about men's football is because I think in women's football, I'm sure you'll agree with this, there clearly are not the same problems around accepting sexuality that there are in the men's game. So to change it, does it need a really high profile player, or at least higher profile, if you like, than the Lowland League? Or is it one of those where it doesn't really matter who it is that comes out, it might never change? How do you look at it?
I do think we need more high-profile visibility. If you look even at even across around the world, not just in Scottish football, you know, the types of players that have come out. I mean, Thomas Hitzelsberger in Germany came out after he stopped playing, you know, and the players that have come out, none of them are really, you know, massively high profile. I think it's going to take 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you know, of these types of players to actually come out. They absolutely do exist. We know that, but they're fearful of coming out. And same for referees. Obviously, we had a couple of referees came out recently in Scotland as well. And, you know, referees get pelters for most things, but, you know, getting pelters for your sexuality is probably something they wish they didn't have to put up with. They could probably tolerate getting pelters for making a bad decision.
That story about those the referees, they actually came out and said the response had been good for them as well.
Exactly.
So it's again that you know, I think the acceptance in our culture is there, but like you touched upon, Julie, it's when, you know, maybe groups of people go to the football and it just starts to become smaller. Whereas if it's in a wider discussion, people kind of seem to be quite normal's not the word, but do you know what I mean? Just like, like this is just everything is fine, and that's the way we want to get to. One thing that I want to ask is the support that you might be getting from the SFA or from Hibs, but also Rainbow Laces. What are Rainbow Laces kind of giving you the tools to do your jobs?
I think primarily the thing that that Rainbow Laces is best at is visibility for the majority of that month, because it's now synonymous with the month of November, which is a good thing. It means that there's a place for that to happen, but that in itself can kind of contribute to an idea that, oh, this is the only month that we're allowed to talk about these things, and we're allowed to maybe push the discussions further. And that's hopefully the whole idea of that we're going to go forward with, is just really pushing the conversation forward and keeping ourselves present and involved all year round, because, you know, gay people exist all year round. We don't just magically come out from under a rock every November to harass people, but you know what I mean. But it's I think as well, it's just football itself, because it is such an institution in itself, and it's a lot of clubs and fans are very protective of the identity and the kind of what football means to them, especially a lot of older fans in my experience. Like, they are quite reluctant to engage with these sort of modern conversations about LGBT people. And now that in fact, even recently on in the Premier League, there was an interview with the Newcastle LGBT supporters group, and even just that, it was in coincide with Rainbow Laces, but knowing that all over the country that there are people that kind of have that same issue of, you know, there's a supporters club here, it's always been here to some degree, even if it hasn't been formally formed together, you know, it's just like that. Yeah.
From the club's perspective, obviously we're really closely affiliated with Hibs. I mean, obviously they want to be a club for all in the community, and that's part of the reason why we are working so closely together with them, because it's really important to them. It's not you know, a lot of people will kind of say, oh, it's virtue signalling and all that kind of stuff. That's not our experience in Hibees Pride. We've had loads of support from the club, both financially and with time. You know, we've had a presence from Ben Kensel. We're lining up a couple of players from the women's team to come along to a meeting. And certainly other resources like using the club's facilities for meetings and things like that. So, and I think having that backing and that close relationship is so important, because it does start to bring other fans on board as well. It's not like we're just operating on our own. The club are basically standing up and going, actually, guys, you know, this club is a club for everybody. You know, there's maybe a commercial aspect to that too as well, because you've got a whole bunch of fans there that is potentially untapped. You know, if you think 10% of the, you know, of society or more maybe are LGBTQI, then, you know, that's 10% of a population that you can tap into commercially as well. So I don't think it is just purely commercial from Hibs, but and certainly that's not the experience we've had. So I just think that tie up, the relationship with the club is massively important as well. And they're firmly behind Rainbow Laces and other activations that we want to do as a supporters group as well, which is great.
Chloe, you were saying about November, and like that's when Rainbow Laces takes place, but it's not just about November, it's an all year round thing. Julie, you were saying about having visibility every week. Obviously a slightly different situation, but if you think to what's happening in the Premier League at the moment with players taking the knee before matches, and the message from players there is that doing it every week, they feel that the power of the message is being lost a little bit. Taking what both of you are saying into account, does that perhaps point to maybe striking the right balance? So not necessarily just having a month of action, but maybe also not having every week either.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the important thing as well for us as a group is to have different activations, so it's not the same thing. So obviously taking the knee, it's the same thing. It's become, you know, just kind of a bit passé to, you know, in some people's eyes. I don't personally think that, but you know, we want to kind of have a variety of different things going on, so it's not just going to be the same thing every week. I know the club do put on, because we've got the screens now at Easter Road, so they'll put up the Hibs badge with the rainbow background and things like that, and they're going to continue to do that every game as well. But they're totally supportive of embracing anything that we've got in terms of suggestions. We've got a whole long list of different things we want to do, and we've chatted about them with the club, and there's not any that they've said no. We've talked about potentially doing something with a strip or a training kit or something like that. They're on board with that. I don't know if you guys noticed the Partick Thistle away strip this season has got the rainbow stripes down the side. That for me is absolutely brilliant, and Hibs are definitely committed to doing something like that. And it's really important because you do want to keep it fresh. You don't want to just kind of feel like you're losing impetus basically because that's something people are just used to seeing every week.
Talking about Partick Thistle and other clubs doing kind of similar initiatives, does that network exist with other clubs, yourselves and other organisations? Yeah,
we've got we're hooked into Football Against Homophobia, and so other clubs come together there. There was a meeting recently at Hampden before the Scottish women's game where Leap were there, and Football Against Homophobia and representatives from other supporters clubs. There's a lot of good discussion at that, so there is that kind of common network there, but I think that could even be stronger and better still.
The fact that it is as you say, Julie, there is just even this sort of passive network of being able to communicate when different instances arrive, and the kind of mutual nationwide appeal of Rainbow Laces, it just kind of keeps a constant presence in people's minds. And even as you were saying, we've got the screens at Easter Road and the flag comes up every week, and we've also got like the Choose Hibs campaign. It was kind of the precursor to it, and we are a part of it. There's a part in it that says Choose Hibees Pride because it's following the whole motif from Trainspotting. And even just the fact that it's involved alongside such other, alongside the names of legends and, other things that we've done and the women's team. And it just means that even nicer just to see that Hibs had really taken that extra mile to incorporate us as part of their larger identity and their larger operation. And it was just so comforting to see that, we really were feeling like we were just being so supported and so open with them.
It's wonderful to hear about how the club has been trying to be so much more inclusive of supporters from all different types of backgrounds. Just staying on the kind of like the positive aspect of it, what does it actually make you feel being able to be part of a a community within the Hibs community that is able to celebrate both your love of your football club and who you are as people in the midst of that?
Well, for me, football's always been a part of my life. That's where I think I've been going since I was 7 or 6. Like, I was tiny, and I always went with my dad and my 2 sisters, and so football's really been important to me. It's been a place of, as you say, it's been a place where I could meet so many amazing new people. I've been able to, I learned how to be a lot more expressive because of it, because it's a new thing to get excited about and get interested in, and getting to yell a couple of things every game is actually quite fun as well. But even
the
then,
football's less good, though, isn't it? The football's less good, but you're a Hibs fan,
Yeah. But and then obviously as I got older, and I realized more things about myself, and I learned more things about football as a wider context, it just means that now I'm in a position where I can really merge these 2 parts of myself. Like, I can merge this part of my family and my community, and this thing that means a lot to me and has allowed me to really cultivate a lot of parts of myself, and also a part of me that's developed outside of it. And ultimately it means that I can possibly get involved and maybe help and change things and help other people find community and comfort. Like, obviously not all down to me, but it just means that I can be part of something that's really important and something that's kind of larger than itself in some respects. And it really means a lot that I can have that opportunity at this point in my life.
I'm 52 now. I've been going to Easter Road since I was 15. I'm obviously quite a bit older than you, Chloe. I started going with my dad, and then he got fed up with it because it was terrible. So I just went on my own. All my friends were Hearts fans, so I just decided to go in from Pennycook every week or every second week on my own. I even started going to away games on my own, on public transport or supporters buses and things. So for me, going back to that time, and even kind of 15, 20 years, over a period of time where you've been going on your own, and being a lesbian is kind of like you've always have that. Well, I always had a fear that I was going to get some kind of abuse. I've been abused at football by my own fans, by opposition fans. So for me to come together in this group now, it's honestly such a relief more than anything. It's that safety of, I know that I can meet with these people and nothing's going to happen to me. I'm not going to get abused. I'm supported. I'm with like-minded people. So from that side of it, that's a massive positive for me. So yeah, it's we've both got a very different perspective on it, because Chloe's a lot younger than me. She's maybe not had to suffer the abuse.
Yeah, I think in that regard I have been pretty lucky, because I've grown up with quite a supportive family and a really, really strong network of found family and friends. And I definitely will say I've not been through as awful a time as you probably have been, Julie, but I also I still want to help. I still want to be a part of it. I still want to kind of use, because I'm just a little lesbian. I'm only so I can I love both my LGBT identity and I love Hibs, and it just, to marry the two just makes the most sense. And if it ends up resulting in positive change, comfort for people, and safety, that's all I could really ask for.
I'm sure both of you have a vision of it being something that is not an issue in the future, but is that a realistic vision in terms of getting everybody to accept everybody for what they are and who they are, or is that something that's always going to be too ambitious?
I think to assume that every single person will become tolerant is probably just in an ideal world, but that should never ever be able to just sort of make you feel hopeless about it, because even if you can just look after and make friends and with even just a small amount of people, that in itself is a positive impact. And we're not here trying to save the world or anything like that. We're just here to make our club, which we love to the bottom of our hearts, make it a good place for future generations and for the current generations and for everybody, and just try and do something that maybe just wasn't possible a wee while ago, a couple of decades ago. Credit to Hibees Pride as well. Hibees Pride have always been really keen to be confidential and really emphasize the safety of the people who join it and are involved with it. There are a lot of people who attend the meetings are on just who are aware of that, but they don't necessarily want to be involved. And Hibees Pride and Hibs as a whole have been really respectful of that, and that in itself I think is a really important aspect to acknowledge.
Do you guys think that the media strikes the right balance when it comes to this issue? It kind of goes back to the idea of, you know, the month of November, Rainbow Laces campaign comes out. But if a player comes out as gay, and are the headlines right, or do you think that the kind of editorial should be a bit more considered? Have you kind of seen anything that makes you think they've not struck the right tone?
I don't know. I think that most of the media stuff we've seen in recent years around the kind of specific events of people coming out, referees or players, I think has been good. I think it's great that they actually are willing to run the story, because it is important. This is what we've been talking about. The visibility is crucial here. So we need the media to get on board and to run stories like this. People who are willing to put themselves out there and lead the way, basically changing opinions. So I haven't seen anything, that's unsavoury or anything like that. So yeah, I'm pretty supportive of what I've seen so far in the media.
It leads me to the kind of idea of the Qatar World Cup. I know Scotland aren't going to be there, but it was picked up a few weeks ago where I think it was someone in the government basically saying words to the effect of "don't be too gay" or something like that in Qatar.
Yeah.
And that okay, the media released that, but it was more on the government aspect, and the idea of promoting a World Cup that in a country that probably doesn't support human rights issues that maybe we do over here. Does it fill you with a little bit of disappointment that there is a World Cup there, but nonetheless there's not enough pressure from other places?
Yeah, massively. And I think we've just been talking about it actually at our last meeting. We're talking about having a social and going out to, watch a game, but trying to pick a team that's actively speaking out against it. So we're going to go and watch the Denmark game because they've actively spoken out against it. So we're going to go out and watch the France-Denmark game. But yeah, I mean, let's face it, right? The World Cup should never be there, right? We know that. First Russia, now Qatar, where are we going next? North Korea or something like that. I mean, it's just bonkers, that you would put something out there, not even just from an LGBT perspective, but just their wider human rights standards are horrific, towards women, towards low-paid workers, just you could go on pretty much. So it's massively disappointing to see that communication that came out firstly from FIFA and then peddled out again by the government here in the UK, that there's been a lot of groups kind of fed back on that. It's hard to even find the words that somebody in government thinks it's okay to put a message out to the fans that are travelling to say, watch your behaviour. It's just madness to me. So that's a huge disappointment. I'm really excited about the World Cup. I mean, I shouldn't be, but I'm excited about it because, I'm looking forward to seeing what protests do come up. And my utopia in my head that I dream about some nights is that, Harry Kane's going to come out as gay or something like that, or somebody else. Clearly it's not going to be Harry Kane, but, that some high profile player actually does come out during the tournament. Because I think that what would happen if that was to be the case is that pretty much all of the media in the Western world will 100% get behind them, as well as the majority of communities, and that could be really powerful, and that might help if the football's really bad, might give us something better to look forward to. But yeah, we're going to go, as I was saying, we're going to watch the France-Denmark game because Denmark have openly said, and challenged about the decision to have the World Cup in Qatar based on their human rights stances and laws. So yeah, we decided to pick that. We were going to do Australia because obviously Boiler is going to be playing for Australia, but the times were just like 10 in the morning and stuff. And I thought, well, I can only reasonably start drinking at 10 in the morning if we're going to a cup final, So
only at Hampden will I do that.
Exactly. So so I'm looking forward to seeing what does come out of it, because I think there will be a lot of different media coverage, and that can be a good thing.
What did you both make of FIFA telling host or competing nations to focus on football. I mean, I think the emphasis there was perhaps more on the human rights issues, but clearly this is an issue as well that has been quite widely publicised, and we know that England and Wales, the captains are going to wear the One Love armbands. So, you know, I mean, like FIFA saying focus on football, how did that go down with both of you?
It's devastating. You know, it's horrific. You're effectively saying, you know, well, it's just somebody else telling you that your existence is wrong, that there's something to be ashamed of. Yeah, you could basically play devil's advocate and say, well, maybe they want to look out for our safety. But for me, I think that is completely socially tone deaf. They should be doing everything they can to make sure that people can go to the game as themselves, behave and feel like they can be free to be themselves. And FIFA, if they want to hold a tournament in Qatar, should be putting in the appropriate protections for that to happen. Asking people to alter their behaviour is just like, it's just unacceptable. It's as simple as that. I can't think of any way you can actually justify it.
No, well, it shows as well just how out of touch FIFA really are. The fact that that's what they're prioritising is making sure that, oh, we don't want any of that gay stuff going on. We don't want any of that because that's going to make us look too woke, and our older fans might not like it. You know, that sort of thing. But even when that happens, as disheartening as it is, it kind of just further solidifies the need for places like Hibees Pride and for LGBT supporters unions, because it's because of things like that. It's when you do get affirmation from one of the highest levels in football that, as Julie says, you know, your existence is something to be shameful. You don't belong in football. You could have been going to the football ever since you came out the womb, but it doesn't matter because you don't quite fit the criteria that we want to promote, and we'll defend a very, very backwards and quite dangerous mentality just to make sure we keep the status quo. And it's motivation, but it's kind of bittersweet motivation.
Just away from the World Cup, and kind of one maybe to finish off with. You were talking earlier on, Julie, about needing a high-profile player to come out. Obviously, this didn't happen in our country, but the episode with Iker Casillas and Carlos Puyol coming out, if you want to put it that way, you know, and then Casillas claiming that he was hacked and, you know, it wasn't him and it was a joke, or, you know, however they wanted to dress it up. Specifically in Scotland, have there been any repercussions that you have felt from that in your own community and on the wider scale as well? How damaging was that?
It's just disappointing. Again, you know, these guys are obviously super high profile and they behaved, you know, as if it was something to be ashamed of and deny and stuff like that. For me, it would have been much better if they just accepted it and went, yeah, so what? You know, whatever. Let anybody think what they want to think. I don't care if I'm, you know, if people think I'm gay, then fine, whatever. It doesn't, I just think that, yeah, that whole denial of it does, it's just disheartening again, like Chloe says. Anytime you feel like you're making one step forward and something like that comes along, you feel like it's another 2 steps back. It fuels the motivation to keep going. But yeah, things like that are always disheartening. I don't think I've seen massive amount of coverage of it in Scotland, apart from, you know, very briefly, but I haven't seen anything kind of major being covered on it, which is a bit disappointing, because it would be good if there was some kind of positive spin on it, like what I've just said, you know, calling them out for their behaviour around it. But it is what it is. We just have to look at these moments as motivation to kind of keep going on.
We have a long way to go still, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
But no, it was never gonna be easy, never gonna be a straightforward process or anything. Like nothing comes for free, especially when you're not very well received by certain groups of people. But you know, we just have to keep going, and we need to keep trying, and we need to just keep pestering people in the best way possible.
I suppose going back to what Julie said earlier on in our chat, how when she was going to games as a 15-year-old and the time then seems a lot different now. Chloe, you even said yourself you didn't go through maybe some of the things that Julie had to go through, and that gives me a crumb of comfort that maybe times have changed and we are moving in the right direction, albeit there is still a long way to go. I just wonder, you know, how long will it take? Give me a number.
Oh, we'll be here all day if I give you a number.
That's true. Too many numbers.
But but yeah, what I was really meaning to say was like, yeah, obviously I've definitely not been through as hellish a time as Julia's, but I don't think that as a gay person you necessarily have to go through a certain amount of trauma to have your involvement in the advancement of LGBT issues and support have it be questioned. And not that that's what I'm saying has happened, but it's just I really want to know that, you know, since I've had a relatively better time of it, like I've not had as bad an experience of it, but I still want to help, and I still want to kind of make it a help and just make things better and just be involved and make sure that never pops up again. And even when it does, like I've at least been brought up in enough confidence to combat it and to stand up to it.
I think for me, Chloe, when I look at it, I don't think, I suffered a lot of trauma. I went through, like, obviously I've experienced some abuse and various different things, but the way I look at it now is that standing up to that and going to Pride and doing that, that's why we are where we are today, because people are doing what we're doing now in Hibees Pride. That's the way things do change, because we're bringing these issues to the forefront. It absolutely fills my heart with joy to know that we have Hibees Pride and lots of other LGBT supporters networks around the country and across the world, and that things are changing. Like you say, it's, you know, we wouldn't even be having this conversation even probably 10 years ago, 20 years ago. But for me, I absolutely, I'm actually really happy that, you know, people like Chloe don't have to go through what, you know, some of the things that people of my generation and people before me. I mean, I never went through half as much as what people before me went through. So, you know, it's definitely moving, but look how long it's taken. I mean, we're just at the point now. I started going to football when I'm 15. I'm 52 now. We're just at the point now where we actually can start. So if you want to put a number on it, you know, we could still be talking about another 20, 30 years before we start to see significant change. But you can't let that hold you back. You've just got to keep addressing the issues as they come up and keep trying to move forward to change the kind of narrative on where we are in society and in football for LGBT people.
Amazing. No, really, really eye-opening. And thanks so much for giving us your time. Good luck with everything that you're going to do, because what you do is really heartwarming. So cheers. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back next Tuesday, so we'll see you then.